Let's compare MS-DOS to Windows 1. At the left we have MS-DOS and at the right we have Windows 1. In MS-DOS to view all your files you have to type dir. In Windows 1 you can see all your files without having to type dir. In MS-DOS to write a text document you have to type the word edit. To see the file that you have just created you have to type dir again. To open the file you have to type edit and then the name of the file. To write a text document in Windows 1, you can just double-click the word Notepad. I am not going to save this document. To open an existing document in Windows 1 just double-click on it. In Windows 1 to delete a file click on it then click File and then click Delete. I do not want to delete this file so I am just going to click Cancel. In MS-DOS to delete a file type del and then the name of the file. As you can see the file is no longer there. In MS-DOS to find out the time you have to type the word time. In Windows 1 you can click the word clock and here we have a great big analog clock. If you want the digital time you can go to Control Panel and it also tells you date. In MS-DOS if you want the date you can type the word date. In Windows 1 to calculate a sum you can click the word calculator. In MS-DOS to calculate a sum you have to go to QBasic. Then type the word print and then the sum. Then press F5 to run the program. Let's calculate another sum, as you can see 1 plus 2 equals 3 which is correct. Let's compare Windows 1 to Windows 2. At the left we have Windows 1 and at the right we have Windows 2. As you can see the color scheme looks different but that doesn't matter because that can be changed in both. In Windows 1 when you open a program such as Notepad it opens full screen. In Windows 2 when you open a program it opens in a window which can be dragged around. You can also resize the window, this allows you to multitask. In Windows 2 you can also minimize windows which makes them turn into an icon. You can also maximize windows which makes them full screen. Let's compare Windows 2 to Windows 3.1. At the left we have Windows 2 and at the right we have Windows 3.1. In Windows 2 we have MS-DOS Executive which basically just displays all your files. In Windows 3.1, if you wanted to display all your files, you would go to the File Manager. As you can see, there are lots of new options. However, in Windows 3.1 you do not have to run your programs using the File Manager, because there is a new Program Manager which sorts your programs into categories, and they also have icons. Let's compare the shell in Windows 2 to the shell in Windows 3.1. On Windows 2 the title is in the center of the window and has a black highlight. The menu bar is pale blue. There is an up and down button in the right hand corner, and there is a menu button in the top left corner of the window. In Windows 3.1 the menu bar is white and the title has no highlight. There is also a menu button in the top left. The up and down button looks slightly different to the ones in Windows 2. When you click the down button, the window minimizes into an icon on the desktop. The icons can be dragged around. In Windows 2, when you minimize programs, they also turn into an icon on the desktop. In Windows 3.1 you can customize the color scheme of the windows. In Windows 3.1 you can also change the desktop background. In Windows 2 you can change the desktop background, but it has to be a single color. It cannot be a pattern, picture, or texture. Let's compare Windows 3.1 to Windows Chicago. At the left we have Windows 3.1 and at the right we have Windows Chicago. In Windows 3.1, if you wanted to open a program, you would use the Program Manager. In Windows Chicago, to open a program you would click on the Programs folder on the desktop. And here we have different categories, which is similar to Windows 3.1. In Windows Chicago we have 3 symbols in bottom left corner. The Windows logo gives you general options such as shutdown. There is also a search button and a help button. In Windows 3.1 these options are found in the menu bar at the top of Program Manager. Let's compare the shell. On Windows Chicago the title is in the center of the title bar, the menu bar is white and the minimize button is a down arrow. The maximize button is an up arrow. In Windows Chicago the menu bar is gray, the title is left aligned in the title bar and the maximize button is a square. The minimize button is a line. When windows are minimized they show up in the taskbar. They also turn into a tile on the desktop. The icons on the desktop are to launch programs. They do not represent a program that is running like they do on Windows 3.1. In Windows Chicago the time is displayed in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. In Windows 3.1 to find out the time you have to open the clock application. Let's compare Windows Chicago to Windows 95. At the left we have Windows Chicago and at the right we have Windows 95. On Windows 95 there is a Start menu with all the features from Windows Chicago all together in one place. In Windows Chicago there are 3 icons with no text and the menus have small text with no icons. In Windows 95 the Start menu has bigger text with icons. In Windows 95 there is only one button and it says the word Start next to it. In Windows Chicago the Search and Help were on separate buttons next to the Start button. In Windows 95 the Search and Help are in the Start menu. In Windows Chicago to access your programs you have to click the Programs icon on the desktop. In Windows 95 to access your programs you just go to the Start menu. Let's compare the shell. In Windows Chicago we have a minimize button and a maximize button but no exit button. To exit a window you have to click the menu button and then click close. In Windows 95 there is an X button in the top right hand corner and the menu button has gone. However, you can still get to the menu by clicking the icon in the top left-hand corner of the window. You can still do this even in modern operating systems like Windows 8.1. Also in Windows 95 some of the application have changed, such as Calculator and Paint. Let's compare Windows 95 and Windows 98. At the left we have Windows 95 and at the right we have Windows 98. As you can see there is not much to compare because most of the changes were things like speed, compatibility, and making it more stable, rather than interface changes. However, there are still a few small interface changes that we could compare. In Windows 98 there are icons next to the Start button. This is called the Quick Launch and did not exist in Windows 95. Let's compare the Start menu. In Windows 95 we have Suspend and in Windows 98 we have Log Off. Windows 98 also has more options. Let's compare the File Explorer. In Windows 95 each folder opens in a new window and there are not many options. In Windows 98 each folder opens in the same window and there are more options. Let's compare Windows 98 to Windows ME. At the left we have Windows 98 and at the right we have Windows ME. Again there is not much to compare. The background on Windows 98 is teal and the background on Windows ME is blue with the Windows ME logo in the top right hand corner. This does not matter because you can change the background on both. On Windows 98 the top if the window is solid blue, and on Windows ME it is a gradient. Let's compare Windows ME to Windows XP. At the left we have Windows ME and at the right we have Windows XP. On Windows ME we have a blue background with the Windows ME logo in the top right hand corner. On Windows XP we have a grassy hill. In Windows ME the taskbar is gray, in Windows XP the taskbar is blue and has a 3D effect. In Windows ME the Start button is gray, in Windows XP the Start button is green. Let's compare the Start menu. As you can see, the Windows XP Start menu looks more modern. In Windows ME here we have Shut Down and Log Off, here we have Programs, and here we have Documents, Settings, Search, Help and Run. In Windows XP here we have Shut Down and Log Off, here we have Recently Used Programs, here we have Pinned Programs, here we have Documents, and here we have All Programs. The All Programs menu in Windows XP is like the Programs menu in Windows ME. The Documents menu in Windows ME contains My Documents and My Pictures, which are found in the right-hand pane of the Windows XP Start menu. In Windows ME My Documents and My Computer are also found on the desktop. Let's compare the shell. In Windows ME the title bar is a gradient. The minimize, maximize and close buttons are gray and the corner are square. In Windows XP the title bar is blue and has a 3D effect. The minimize and maximize buttons are blue and the close button is red. The corners are rounded. In Windows XP you can change the color scheme of the windows. In Windows ME you can also change the color scheme of the windows. If you want to make Windows XP look like Windows ME, then you can apply the Windows Classic theme. You can also change the color scheme of the Classic theme in Windows XP just like you can in Windows ME. If you want to make the Start menu in Windows XP look like the Start menu in Windows ME, then you can apply the Classic Start menu. As you can see, the Start menu now looks just like it did in Windows ME. Let's compare Windows XP to Windows Longhorn. At the left we have Windows XP and at the right we have Windows Longhorn. In Windows XP we have a grassy hill and in Windows Longhorn we have some leaves. In Windows Longhorn we now have a sidebar which you can add gadgets to. This did not exist in Windows XP. In Windows XP the recycle bin is in the bottom right hand corner. In Windows Longhorn the recycle bin is in the top left hand corner. This has probably been done because otherwise it might get in the way of the sidebar. In Windows Longhorn the Start button is black and has no text on it. In Windows XP the Start button is green and has the word Start on it. In Windows Longhorn the taskbar is gray. In Windows XP the taskbar is blue. The Start menu looks similar. Let's compare the shell. In Windows XP the title bar is blue. This is called the Luna theme. In Windows Longhorn the title bar is gray. This is called the Slate theme. Windows Longhorn also has a Jade theme. Windows Longhorn also has a Windows XP theme. As you can see, Windows Longhorn now looks like Windows XP. Windows Longhorn also has the Windows Classic theme which looks like Windows ME. Let's compare Windows Longhorn to Windows Vista. At the left we have Windows Longhorn and at the right we have Windows Vista. In Windows Longhorn we have some leaves and in Windows Vista we have some colorful computer-generated lines. In Windows Vista the sidebar looks more modern than it does in Windows Longhorn. In Windows Vista you can still add gadgets to the sidebar. In Windows Vista the Start button is round. In Windows Vista the taskbar is transparent and 3D. Let's compare the Start menu. In Windows Vista the username and account picture is in the top right-hand corner of the Start menu. In Windows Longhorn the username and account picture is in the top left-hand corner of the Start menu. In Windows Longhorn when you open subcategories in the All Programs menu the menus spread out across the desktop. In Windows Vista when you click All Programs it shows them inside the Start menu to make it look tidier. Let's compare the skin. In Windows Vista the X button is wider, the windows are also transparent. In Windows Longhorn you can switch between windows by pressing Alt-Tab just like you could in Windows 95, which is nothing new. However, nothing happens when you press Windows key tab. In Windows Vista you can also switch between windows by pressing Alt-Tab. However, in Windows Vista you can also switch between windows by pressing Windows key tab, which gives you a 3D window fly-through. In Windows Longhorn, to change the desktop background you have to click on the name before you can see what it looks like, and then you have to click Apply to set it. As you can see in Windows Vista, it gives you a preview of each one, so you do not have to click on each one to see what it looks like. Let's make the window a bit bigger so we can get a better view. As you can see, when you click on a background it changes automatically, so you do not have to click Apply. In Windows Vista you can also make the window borders whatever color you want. You can also choose whether they are transparent or not. In Windows Vista you can also apply the Windows Classic skin. You can also apply the Windows Classic Start menu. Let's compare Windows Vista to Windows 7. At the left we have Windows Vista and at the right we have Windows 7. In Windows Vista we have some colorful lines, and on Windows 7 we have a blue leafy background with the Windows logo in the middle. In Windows Vista we have a sidebar full of gadgets. In Windows 7 the sidebar has gone. You may think that in Windows 7 the gadgets have been removed, however this is not the case. In Windows 7 you can still add gadgets just by right-clicking on the desktop, then clicking Gadgets, then dragging the gadgets that you want onto the desktop. You can now drag the gadgets around wherever you want on the desktop, unlike Windows Vista where they had to be in a bar at the side. As you can see, the taskbar in Windows 7 is very different to the taskbar in Windows Vista. The taskbar is a lot thicker and the icons are a lot bigger. It is basically like a giant expanded quick launch, only the icons move around more smoothly. Let's open up some programs in both. As you can see in Windows Vista, each program that is open has a separate taskbar button and it says the name on it. When you hover over the taskbar buttons it shows a thumbnail of what the window looks like, however these thumbnails are not touchable. As you can see in Windows 7 I have open one File Explorer and two notepads, just like I do in Windows Vista. In Windows 7 the taskbar button's a square rather than rectangular and only have the icon with no text, and the thumbnails are touchable. Also both of the notepads that I have open are combined into one taskbar button. This takes up less space on the taskbar. In Windows 7 there is a Show Desktop button in the bottom right hand corner, and when you hover over it, it shows you the desktop. There is a glassy outline that shows you where the windows are. In Windows Vista there is also a Show Desktop button, but it is in the quick launch and it does not show you a preview when you hover over it. In Windows Vista, when you are changing the desktop background, you can only choose one image. However, in Windows 7 you can choose multiple images and have a slideshow that automatic changes. You can also specify how long you want each image to last. I am going to choose 10 seconds so that you can see it changing. If you do not like the new Windows 7 taskbar, then you can make it look and behave like the Vista one. As you can see now, each window has its own button with text, and the taskbar is thinner, just like the Windows Vista one. You can also apply the Windows Classic skin. However, the Classic Start menu has been removed. Let's compare Windows 7 to Windows 8. At the left we have Windows 7 and at the right we have Windows 8. In Windows 7 we have the Windows logo on a blue leafy background. In Windows 8 we have some white flowers on a blue background. In Windows 7 we have a start menu with all your programs. In Windows 8 the start button has gone. However, if you move your mouse to the bottom left-hand corner, it come up with a little picture, and if you click it, it takes you to a great big bunch of tiles. In Windows 8 you can still access all the functions that are usually in the Windows 7 Start menu. You just access them in a different way. This screen displays your favorite programs. This is equivalent to the left-hand section of the Windows 7 Start menu. In Windows 8 your username and account picture are displayed in the top right-hand corner of the Start screen. In Windows 7 your username and account picture are displayed in the top right-hand corner of the Start menu. In Windows 8 to display all your programs you right-click on the Start screen and then click All Apps. In Windows 7 to display all your programs you click All Programs, which is in the Start menu. In Windows 7 at the right-hand side of the Start menu we have things like Documents, Computer, Control Panel, Shutdown, and Log Off. In Windows 8 to log off you would click on your username, which is at the top right-hand corner of the Start screen, and then click Sign Out. In Windows 8 to shut down you would go to the Charms and then Settings and then Power and then Shut Down. To access the Windows 8 equivalent of Control Panel you would click Change PC Settings. In Windows 8 you can also access some more options by right-clicking in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Let's compare the shell. In Windows 7 the window border is transparent, the corners are rounded and the title is left aligned. In Windows 8 the window border is opaque, the corners are square and the title is centered. Let's compare the File Explorer. In Windows 7 we have a back arrow and a forward arrow. In Windows 8 we also have an up arrow. In Windows 7 we have some options in this bar. In Windows 8 we have the ribbon interface. Let's change the view to large icons on both. In Windows 8 it gives you a preview when you hover over things. In Windows 7 you can bring up some more options by pressing Alt. Let's press Ctrl Alt Delete in both. As you can see we have lock, switch user, log off, change password and task manager in both. We also have cancel, ease of access and power options in both. In Windows 7 there is a blue leafy background and the buttons are 3D and shiny. In Windows 8 they have gone for more of a simplistic theme. In Windows 7 it also has the logo down the bottom. If you want to make Windows 8 have a Windows 7-like start menu, then you can do this using a program called Classic Shell. As you can see we now have a Windows 7-like start menu. You can also customize it by right-clicking on it. You can also change the skin. You can also uninstall Classic Shell by going to Program and Features, then clicking on Classic Shell, then clicking Uninstall. As you can see the Start button has gone. Let's compare Windows 8 to Windows 8.1, on the left we have Windows 8 and on the right we have Windows 8.1. In Windows 8 we have some white flowers on a blue background, and in Windows 8.1 we have a simple orange pattern. In Windows 8 the Start button has been removed. In Windows 8.1 the Start button is back, but it just takes you straight to the Start screen rather than a Start menu. In Windows 8 the tiles can only be 2 sizes. In Windows 8.1 the tiles can be 4 different sizes. In Windows 8 to get to all apps you have to right-click and then click all apps. In Windows 8.1 you can just click the down arrow. In Windows 8.1 you can name groups of tiles, in Windows 8 you cannot. In Windows 8 to shut down you would go to the charms then settings then power then shut down. In Windows 8.1 you can do the same. However, in Windows 8.1 you can also get to it by right-clicking the Start button. In Windows 8 when you open the File Explorer it takes you to Libraries, in Windows 8.1 it takes you to this PC. Also on Windows 8.1 in Taskbar Properties there is an extra tab called Navigation. This was not there in Windows 8. This is the Settings app in Windows 8. This is the Setting app in Windows 8.1. As you can see it looks quite different. In Windows 8 you can have apps snap to the side like this, however you cannot have it half and half. In Windows 8.1 you can have it half and half, you can also have apps snap to the side. In Windows 8 we have Internet Explorer 10, in Windows 8.1 we have Internet Explorer 11. Let's compare Windows 8.1 to Windows 8.11. In this virtual machine we have Windows 8.1 and on my host we have Windows 8.11. In Windows 8.1 to shut down you can either right-click the Start button or go to Charms then Settings then Power then Shut down. You can also do both of these in Windows 8.11. However, there is now a power button and a search button in the top right-hand corner of the Start screen. Windows 8.1 does not have this. In Windows 8.1 when you right-click a tile all the options are on a bar at the bottom. In Windows 8.11 when you right-click a tile all the options are in a list. In Windows 8.11 you can change the size of the tiles in the Apps view. In Windows 8.1 you cannot. Let's compare closing a Metro app. As you can see it is 17 degrees in Napier at the moment. At the weekend it is going to be warm. However, it will be cooling off later on in the week. However, that is not why we are here. To close a Metro app in Windows 8.1 you have to drag it to the bottom of the screen. In Windows 8.11 you do not have to do this because there is a black bar at the top of the screen with an X button on it. You can also bring up the taskbar from within a Metro app which you could not do on Windows 8.1. In Windows 8.11 you can still drag it down just like you could in Windows 8.1. Let's compare Windows 8.11 to Windows 10. On my host we have Windows 8.11, and in this virtual machine we have Windows 10. In Windows 8.11 when you click Start it takes you to a full screen bunch of live tiles. In Windows 10 when you click Start it takes you to a Windows 7-like Start menu with some live tiles tacked onto the side. Let's compare the shell. In Windows 10 we have borderless windows and a shadow round the edge. In Windows 8.11 we have a bordered windows and no shadow round the edge. Let's open lots of different programs in Windows 8.11. In Windows 8.11 you can snap windows to the side just like you could in Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 8.1. Let's open lots of different programs in Windows 10. In Windows 10 it now asks you what you want to do with the available space. In Windows 10 you can also snap windows to the corner of the screen which you could not do in Windows 8.11. In Windows 10 there is a task view where you can see all your open apps in the middle of the screen. You can also add a second desktop. You can have different things open on different desktops. Let's open some more apps in Windows 8.11. In Windows 8.11 when you press Alt-Tab it switches between your open applications just like it always did. In Windows 10 when you press Alt-Tab it uses the full screen task view. In Windows 8.11 we have the Charms menu. In Windows 10 it has been removed. In Windows 8.11 when you open a Metro app it opens full screen. In Windows 10 when you open a Metro app it opens in a window on the desktop. Goodbye.